Welcome to the Pinch to Zoom podcast, the show where we zoom in on the latest tech news, products, and trends. I'm Stetson.
I'm Gabe.
And in this episode, we're talking augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality with special guest Elena Peach. But before we get to that, we have quick news and, of course, our Go Review segment where I'll be reviewing the Aperture MC RGB WW LED light. But first, of course, quick news. So Gabe, roll that intro.
Quick news. And welcome to Quick News, where we talk about what's new, what's news, and what could be new in the world of tech. This week, wow, summer is heating up, and the tech sphere of new products and rumors of products it's boiling at this point, right?
We're like overflowing. I'm overwhelmed. It's incredible. It's actually quite great. Gabe, what new products do we have?
So first off, we have the Canon R6 and R5. Now this is a new product. We already talked about it on a bonus episode, so I'm not really going to talk much about it here. If you did miss that, go back to our previous episode, which is, appropriately titled Bonus R6 and R5, or whatever we title it exactly. But long short of it, you got the R6, $2,500 about, and that will be 4K 60 FPS video. You have the R5 for about $4,000, and that's going to be 8K video raw. The major update we did see is that there appears to be a lot of reports of overheating with these two cameras. So that is something I don't want to pat myself on the back too much. I did say, hey, people, you might want to, not jump on the pre-orders and not, commit fully to these right now, because it's really going to depend what happens when people get their hands on these and start using them, and actually how you use products. But it's not a big deal. We kind of expected it. So I guess it's, a moot point there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did pre-order. I'm still fine with my R6.
You're looking a little sheepish.
Yeah, you were
right
you were just like eyeing me right there. I think it's okay. I do think you are going to want to take into consideration the heat limits if you are purchasing these. The good thing is the camera will display how much record time you have remaining, taking into consideration the overheating issues. But I think we had some other exciting camera news. So Gabe, please continue.
Yeah, if you thought 8K was cool and Canon was all sitting back on their laurels, like, yeah, we have 8K video cameras now. Well, Blackmagic just said, all right, Canon, hold my beer. We're going to update our Ursa Mini 4K, or 4.6K, to now an Ursa Mini Pro 12K camera.
This is nuts. This is like an 80 megapixel
camera. We need like a bass drop, mic drop, something there, because that is insane. Yeah, an 80 megapixel Super Cinema 35 sensor. So not full frame, unfortunately, but still 80 megapixels is what's required to do 12K. And most people won't probably use actually 12K footage on an output, but what it's intended for is you can shoot 12K, have a bunch of information there for if you're doing VFX, if you're wanting to export at 8K or 4K, you can crop in, or even if you're 1080p, oh my God, you crop in so much. And what's incredible is also the frame rate. So it does 12K at 60 frames a second.
That's insane.
We just got 4K at 60 and they're doing 12K at 60.
What?
It also does 8K at 110 frames a second and 4K at 220 frames a second. So this is a beast of a camera. It does come with a beast of a price tag as well, a bit, $9,999. But if you compare it to cameras from Red, which have similar specs that cost around $50,000, this actually looks like a really good deal.
This camera looks absolutely next level. And I think what's really incredible here is Blackmagic is controlling the entire creation pipeline, from the image sensor to the Blackmagic RAW codec to the editing software. I mean, they have the whole package here. No one else has been able to do this. I wish I had an excuse to get this. It looks absolutely incredible.
I can help you. I'm very good at developing excuses.
Gabe, that's what I like to hear.
Yeah. And finally, the last real new product that we got was Logitech released a Mac-only version of their popular MX Master 3 mouse and MX Keys keyboard. Now, I think you use their MX 3 Master mouse, right?
Yep, I'm on the new MX Master Mouse version 3.
You probably do not want to or do not have the need to update to this new version, because while it's a new version that's Mac only, it's the same price. It does come with a new USB-C to USB-C cable, which is kind of nice, but it actually doesn't include the unifying receiver, which you can plug into your computer and quickly connects. And the only other real thing you're getting is it's kind of the same color as the Mac with that, dark gray color scheme. So
That's a really curious update. I actually think the
Yeah.
unifying receiver is important because sometimes it's more reliable than Bluetooth.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the main reasons you'd get a Logitech thing. The thing is, most people probably have multiples of those already if they've bought Logitech products for a while, so no need really, I guess. But yeah, it's just kind of a more putting it out there, trying to price it up for Mac users. Actually, two more little thing releases, new products. We got 12 to 24 f2.8 lens from Sony, which landscape photographers are just foaming at the mouth over. It looks gorgeous. It also is $3,000. And we also saw Small HD drop some new 5-inch monitors that are pro and more rugged and are intended to have controls that will work with Red cameras. So that's it for new products, though.
Now moving on to news, we have some interesting tidbits here. First, YouTube is finally letting creators know exactly how much money they're making on YouTube with a new metric called RPM, or revenue per 1,000 views. Now, this gives you a really clear picture at how much you are making as a creator. It takes out all of the earnings that YouTube has and shows you exactly what money you are making from your videos, which is really cool. We have Superstrata unveiling the world's first 3D printed unibody electric bike, a big pedal forward for the electric commuter world. And we also have Amazon. They developed a new shopping cart. Amazon seems to be very into shopping. That's what I've decided. They have a new shopping cart, and it lets you check out without a cashier. The idea here is you no longer need the sensors in an Amazon Go store. The sensors are built into the shopping cart now with a touchscreen tablet and other sensors, and you basically get your own separate checkout lane. You go through with your items in your cart, and you pay with your Amazon account. Next up, Twitter. We had a lot of Twitter news. I mean, there's a huge Twitter hack.
Oh yeah, I sent some Bitcoin to someone, to Elon Musk to get doubled on Twitter.
Oh,
So
that's
that was exciting news
that's
for me.
that's great.
I haven't gotten it back yet, but
Oh
yeah.
God.
Yeah,
Well,
what were you talking about?
so hackers actually hacked over 130 accounts on Twitter where they tweeted to get people to send Bitcoin and have it sent back.
Oh
Dub-
no, that doesn't sound good for me.
That does not sound good for you. But yeah, so basically what happened, Twitter was hacked. We believe this had something to do with a back end, possibly a Twitter employee being inside on this or somehow compromised or tricked or something. All we know is the hackers got about 13 Bitcoin, roughly $120,000. They hacked about 130 accounts, and they basically tweeted, as we said, like, send Bitcoin to this address and we'll double it, something like that. Twitter definitely working on it. We're waiting to see what they have to say about it. And other Twitter news, we believe the hackers may have had someone on the inside. So I think that's it for Twitter. Moving on to Facebook now, we have some interesting news relating to this podcast, and it's that Oculus is boosting its VR headset production to 2 million units this year, a 50% annual jump. And we also have Sony increasing their PlayStation production targets by 50%, indicating people could be getting into gaming, more time at home. Maybe people are looking for an escape into virtual reality. We'll have to wait and see. And also, Facebook is preparing to launch their TikTok competitor, conveniently timed with the possible ban of TikTok in some countries. I haven't heard too much about this.
Instagram's planning on launching their TikTok competitor.
Okay.
I think
But
Facebook already has something called Loops, I'm pretty sure. Or something, wasn't it? They already have something just by Facebook, but Instagram's owned by Facebook, and Instagram is planning on launching a TikTok competitor. Also, Snapchat is supposedly also planning on launching a TikTok kind of interface for sharing public content. So yeah, they're planning on banning TikTok maybe in the US. That's a rumor. They already did in India, and companies are jumping at this to say, yep, we want to be there.
They want the user engagement. They want the eyeballs. And lastly, I'm a big fan of 5G. I wanted to throw this in there for all of you 5G people. As of July 8th, the US has 5G deployments in 6,087 cities and towns. T-Mobile has the most. They cover 94% of those cities. AT&T, 237 deployments of 5G. Verizon lagging behind with just 39 deployments. That's your 5G update.
Proud Verizon customer here without a 5G phone.
And it turns out it wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Yep,
but Gabe,
exactly.
take us home with some of the rumors upcoming in tech.
All right, yeah. I realize we did start off the episode or this quick news segment with a bit of a hype of how summer's heating up. And then we had a very underwhelming new product kind of part of this quick news. So fret not. The rest is in the rumors. First off, we got some major launch dates now. OnePlus Nord launch. This is their budget phone from OnePlus. This will be, actually, by the time you're listening, it could be out. It's July 21st it will be launched. And the big thing, budget phone, you're like, ho-hum, right? But who really cares? Well, I guess, who really cares?
I don't know. Everyone who's like trying to save money, Gabe.
But you saw how much hype the iPhone SE got, and this is going to probably be next level. They are estimating that, this phone's going to come in under $500, OnePlus has said. It will have 6 cameras on it of some sort, that could be depth sensing or color spectrum, whatever. And it will actually have 5G thanks to the 756 Snapdragon processor. So,
do we know if that covers all spectrums? My guess is it's only low band 5G.
It probably is, but still 5G in some forms, at least it's something. It's
and under $500,
it's a way for cell phone companies to charge more too, as well. But that's the cynical look there. It will also have a 90 hertz display, so
I'm really excited to see that.
We're seeing some of those more premium features trickle down to budget phones. Always exciting. Next up, though, and this is the big one for me.
Gabe, finally.
I have 80 reminders set on the day. I have all the timers set down to my house to end on this time. Sony finally revealed the date they will be announcing the A7. Gosh, I'm gonna cry. S3.
Just give him a moment. He's getting emotional right now.
I'm getting emotional right now.
This is him. Wow.
This is gonna be coming July 28th. It's probably only going to be the Sony S3. I have a reason to feel why I think they could release other cameras, maybe later or even at this event, but I think the Sony S3 deserves its own event, so that's really fine with me. Rumored specs are continuing to pour in. Honestly, we'll probably get shots of the camera before the event comes out, but the big things you have to know for now is it's likely to have 4K at 120 FPS, 10-bit 422 recording, 600 megabits per second bitrate, 15 stops of dynamic range, and a 16-bit raw photos. It will have that capability. Notably, now this is the big thing, they went with a 12-megapixel sensor still. And you could be like, 2020, what are you doing with a 12-megapixel sensor,
my phone has a 64-megapixel sensor.
We just mentioned, the Blackmagic 12K has an 80-megapixel sensor.
What is Sony doing?
But I think this, we talked about the R5 and R6 having overheating issues. This is key because Sony, with the 12-megapixel sensor, it is rumored they are not going to have any recording limit and have no overheating issues, even when recording 4K 120 FPS.
I think this is the absolute right move from Sony. This is a camera for video creators. This is going to have the recording features they need. And I think with the larger pixels, they're getting better low light performance.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to be able to deliver a cleaner, sharper image in a wider variety of shooting scenarios. And 4K 120, yes, please. This sounds
very, very
awesome.
Exciting.
And did you mention the articulating screen?
I don't know if I want to mention that because we don't really know what form that's going to take. There is rumored to be some version.
I think it's going to be ripped from the ZV-1. I think we've already seen it. We know what to expect.
Okay.
Yep. That's exactly.
I think that's exciting. I'm honestly pretty fine with the current setup for Sony screens, though when vlogging it is super annoying, I will admit. So I would like to see something like that. And yeah, that would be nice to see, but I'm not going to set my hopes too high. I'm just happy for whatever comes. Next up, because we're not done yet, there's still more things. August 5th, Samsung has set the date for their, what do they call it? They're usually
Note 20, or they're Unpacked?
Unpacked, yeah. It's a Samsung Unpacked event. And this will be, of course, as you said, the Note 20 on August 5th. We'll see a couple versions of it announced, most likely. And all of them, though, will be geared towards being not as expensive as the S20 was back in February, because that was super overpriced for what it was. We'll also see.
I think Samsung realized
too
that people couldn't afford it. But yeah, I guess now you have the Fold 2, so continue.
You'll see the Fold 2, which will supposedly not have integration with the S Pen because they don't want to damage the screen, but be an update overall. We'll also possibly see a 5G variant of the Galaxy Z Flip, a new version of the S3 smartwatch, and the Galaxy S7 tablet. So, bunch of exciting stuff coming from Samsung. So if you're a Samsung user, hold off buying anything new for a little bit because there's new stuff around the corner.
Yeah, you want to see what's coming, and quite honestly, prices are dropping on the used market, so something to consider.
And finally, we saw some leaked images of an unreleased Google Nest smart speaker. These were leaked accidentally. I'm not sure what site actually leaked them, but then eventually Google just outright just tweeted them and even put a video up of this. It wasn't of the product. It was kind of like the product was in the background.
Yeah, it was a teaser.
But either way, Yeah, it looks like an update to the original Google Home.
Something like that. I would describe
Smart
it
speaker.
as if you took the Google Home Max and you shrunk it
Okay.
down, it's like a smaller
Yep.
speaker of that. And from what we can tell, it looks like it has maybe a wireless dock, like this speaker can be detached and has a battery, and it's kind of like a Bose SoundLink color, like one of those, and you can bring it with you, and then you can put it back kind of on a dock. Maybe it's vertical, maybe it's on its side. I don't know. It's like a unique Google product, so we're waiting to get those details confirmed.
Yeah, but we should see that most likely sometime in the fall, I would guess, maybe September, or maybe all the way to October when Google usually announces their new smartphones. Hopefully sooner, though, because they didn't really have a Google I/O that launched a ton of stuff, so maybe they'll put some stuff out in August.
Yeah, and I think speaking of Google, the last rumor I wanted to mention was the Pixel 4a.
Pixel 4a, is that even a rumor?
Google
at this
just
point?
like low-key leaked it on their, what was it, the Canadian website?
Yep, exactly.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, there's not much exciting with that, though. I mean, the OnePlus Nord, honestly, is a more exciting budget phone.
And that
than the
ties
4A.
in nicely kind of with our event, because the Nord
Oh.
launch event they're doing an AR event where you can see it in augmented reality. So I think that'll be really cool.
This will look really interesting. I think you have to pay, though, to attend it. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I think my understanding right now is people who pre-ordered without knowing anything about the phone, they got an
I think
invite
that's what it is.
to attend the launch event. I'm unsure what else is going around. I should have been on the ball in the smartphone world. I was doing other things. I'm hoping to learn more soon, but I think the Android world is really going to be excited about it. That's my take.
Yep. Budget phones for the win. So that's it for quick news, though. Hopefully we kept you up to date. And by the time we release this, hopefully there's not like 5 new items launched or something. But never know. That's the way the tech world works. So moving on, we have Go Review. Now, Go Review is the segment where one of us asks the other to review a product or a service, really anything that's somewhat tech related. We've had, what have we had in the past? We've had TikTok reviewed. We've had the DJI Mavic Air 2 I reviewed. Stetson reviewed the S20 smartphone. It's been all over the place, but on the last episode, I did review the best cloud storage out there, so you can go back and listen to that if you're interested. And then I asked Stetson, hey, you're lighting yourself on this call that we're doing over Zoom with the Aperture MC. What's the name of it?
It is the
It's so
Aperture
long.
MC RGB WW LED light.
Yep. I said, yeah, Stetson, that's the light that you're using. Can you give us a review of that? It's been super popular. It's $99.
Yeah, it starts at
$120?
actually $90. The problem is that it's sold out in most places. So sometimes
Yeah.
I bought mine for $120. Thankfully on Facebook Marketplace, I was able to find someone who had it.
So yeah, I said, Stetson, review this light, and now after the long wait, we're here for the review. So Stetson, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so welcome to the Go Review. Gabe, you can't see this, and I'm just going to describe it in an audio format for the listeners out there. This is going to be available on the Pinch to Zoom YouTube channel if you're interested in seeing a visual of what I'm talking about. But this is it. This is the Aperture MC RGB WW LED light, and you can see it comes in this box. Included is the light itself. You also get a nice little carrying pouch that comes with some adhesive strips and a little light dome to cover and diffuse the light. And I think we should really talk about the light itself, because this is really the star of the show. It has on one side, you have an on-off switch. What I love about this is it's instant. It's instant on, instant off. You're not pressing and holding a button. You're not waiting for a startup screen. None of that jazz. You also have a USB Type-C input for charging and power. What's really nice is you can actually power this over USB Type-C for infinite record limits. And then you also have a clicky wheel, similar to what you would find on a camera for selecting your aperture or shutter speed, but you can click to select it. And at the top, you have a display where you can change the hue and the saturation and the intensity. So that's a brief overview of the light. It has very strong magnets on the back. It's about the size, here's a phone for a comparison. It's about the size, it's a little bit bigger than maybe an iPhone SE, something like that. And yeah, I think in terms of use, this is really phenomenal. It puts out, from my testing, about 800 lumens of light. And I think it's rated for let me see if I can pull up the exact spec here. It's rated for it's rated for 96 CRI, I believe, in terms of color accuracy for skin tones. And I think, yeah, it's just a compact, great little device for lighting and for adding a little bit of splash of color to your scene. So
I know a lot of people use it on set, even if you already have super expensive lights that you don't really need other stuff. They use it as a practical sometimes. So yeah, adding a splash of color or even putting in, a lampshade to put a light there.
Yeah, you can
So
it
it
can
looks like it's coming
slide into the back, and the
from that.
magnets make it great. So you can, it's really
I
strong.
think they actually even use stuff like this on, like carpool karaoke for the people in the back seat. They tape them to the headrest of the seats in front of them.
Get some extra lighting
so
back there. Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And honestly, only at $90. This is super versatile. I really like it. It doesn't flicker in video. That's something I had a problem with my Philips Hue lights. They would flicker in video. This one, no flicker problems.
And interestingly, how it does that, I think, is it uses a random refresh rate. I'm pretty sure.
That sounds really cool. I believe.
So
it.
rather than consistently 120 times per second doing it, it's doing it randomly throughout that certain number of milliseconds between refreshes. One question I had, you might be getting to it, is what's the battery life on this thing?
Yeah. So for my testing, I think the battery life is somewhere around 2 hours. And I found basically it works perfectly fine for A-roll. Like if I'm doing an A-roll, 45 minutes, max brightness, totally fine for something like that. It would probably go for, again, I think up to 2 hours. And if you're doing something more intensive, like for my B-roll, I know that takes me a little bit longer. For that, I do want to have it plugged in. It does get hot and warm to the touch. It's never shut off on me. It does have wireless charging.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
I will say, as someone who has the Lume cubes and I also have a Luxley light, both of those are constantly overheating on me, and I'll be in the middle of the shoot and they'll just shut off.
This doesn't have this problem. It's never shut off on me, and it does also have some effects. My take on the effects is you'll see a YouTuber like demo them, and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's like kind of cool.
I'll use those maybe.
You'll never use those. I've actually used the fire effect once. I had some friends over for a socially distanced bonfire, and it was too hot to light a fire, and so I just popped that in there with a external battery bank, and we were good to go. So it was kind of cool. The last thing I think I really want to talk about here, and what sold me on the aperture light, let me actually just pop it. Well, I need it on, but let me turn the brightness down a little bit so we can see a little bit better on camera for those of you watching in video format. The other big thing is the application. And I would describe this as something similar to a Philips Hue application where you can basically connect to your light wirelessly and manage it like you would sort of a Philips Hue setup. And this works great for if you're in your studio, you can control the color wirelessly with your phone. You get a color wheel, you can choose the exact value. What works great for me is you can save presets. So I do a lot of carrier reviews, and let's say I'm reviewing T-Mobile. I can go into my presets tab, and I can find my T-Mobile preset, tap OK, and boom, I'm getting consistent lighting for all of my T-Mobile videos that I do now and in the future.
You know what'd be really great? If they had like some light bulbs out that you could also maybe Philips Hue has theirs. And if they had light bulbs for aperture that also kind of plugged into this app.
Well, Gabe,
right?
I mean, you should just explain yourself because they have those, but they rebranded.
They
Yeah,
they're available. You can buy them.
Okay. Well, I'm curious to see if your A7S III or my lights come out first.
All right. Okay. All right. Now we're going back.
But yeah, so they have the aperture. They were called the RC LED lights. They were rebranded. Gabe, you have a great article on your website about that. I can't remember the rebrand name.
I think it's the BS7. I'm pretty sure.
That sounds something weird like that. BC7. I think. Yeah.
B7C. I think is what it is actually. But all the aperture lights coming out now, I think, should work with this Sidus Link app.
They
right?
do.
So you could have a full setup of like 20 lights, and they all mesh network together over Bluetooth, and then you can control them all.
It's really incredible, and this works with their bigger lights too. So you can have your your key light, and then maybe your
300D.
Exactly. So
yeah.
This app is what sold me on the Aperture MC LED light. It makes my life so much easier, not having to get in an awkward position to look at the...
How easy is it to pair?
Oh, it's so easy. It's like pairing Bluetooth headphones, and you do it once, and then the app will auto-connect every time consistently.
That's nice.
It's super, super nice.
Now, they sell a kit of these, right?
They do. You can get a kit of 4 of them, and what's interesting is the kit will take advantage of the wireless charging on the back, and it will charge the lights when you set them down in the carrying case. That's like $400.
It also runs you $500 for 4 lights.
Yeah, so it's expensive.
So it's $90 a light, and then a kit for, I guess the case for like $150 or so.
I think that's going to be it for me. I mean, the highlights is the instant on, instant off, the application, The wheel on the side, I actually find annoying because it's easy to accidentally brush your hand against it and all of a sudden you change color temperature or something like that. But overall, for what you're getting for $90, easy recommendation. I highly recommend adding this to your studio
Have
kit.
you used it for photography too?
I have used it for capturing some photos, just adding a splash of color in there, and it's really good for accenting that. I actually want to get another one so you can get kind of two tones going on. Maybe, I don't know, a blue and orange or something like that.
The interesting thing I would think would be maybe comparing or looking for people who have comparisons between these and the really popular like RGB tube lights.
Well, I think,
which, you know,
again, what sold me
like
was the
Nan Light has those out that are like the 6Cs that are only $100 as well. And like, which is a better one? Because the tubes are a little bigger, right? But they provide a more diffused light potentially.
It's true.
Whereas something like that's a little more accented and sharp, but it's smaller.
Well, you do get a diffuser dome included. I've noticed this really helps, but it makes the light overall dimmer, as you would expect. But ultimately, for me, the application is what made this perfect for my setup. And I can't emphasize enough how satisfying it is just having instant on, instant off. Whereas I know with some of the lights, you do have to like press and hold, wait for it to start up.
Yeah, that's really an interesting thing. And you're right, because I know with the Luxley one, I press it and it takes about 1 second before it actually comes fully on.
Yeah, this is just instant. And the USB Type-C, everything about this is just well thought out, well designed. The biggest problem, it's sold out. So it may be hard to get.
Good luck getting one. Yeah, we just talked about a product that's so great, and now you can't get it.
I know. I had to go on Facebook Marketplace to get mine, but definitely, add it to your wish list on B&H or elsewhere so you get that in-stock notification. But I think that's it. That's the Aperture MC RGB LED light. Gabe, do you have any questions? I mean, I feel like I tried to cover as much as possible about this light.
No, I think you did a very good, thorough go review. I like it. We'd been having these really huge comparisons the past couple ones between like which service is better for cloud storage. Or I think you had, what did I give you?
Browsers.
I had to do browsers. I did streaming products. Yeah, so this is a nice focused one, and you above and beyond for what I expected. So thank you very much for that review, Stetson. Do you have something for me to go review on our next episode?
Yeah, Gabe. So I loved your idea of returning to products, and I think given the current environment we are in, there's a product that you may have used it a couple of times, and I feel like it may be worth just a review for the next episode, considering what's coming out, and it's the A7 III. I'd love to get, I know it's an older camera, but I know you switched from the A7S II, so I feel like you can provide input on that to the 3. And then when we get the A7S III, I think everything will just be rounded out so nicely.
I don't think our next episode will be out until after the S3 is announced, though.
That's what I'm saying. So it'll be announced. We'll have the details. And then you can...
Okay, so I can contrast between... Okay.
Yeah, so like, should you get the hybrid photo video? Should you go for the all video one? Or
should you wait for an updated A7 IV maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
That's something I didn't talk about actually in Go Rumors, but I think they'll drop, since this is only a 12 megapixel A7S III, I think we'll see in the future either maybe an A7 IV, an A7 R5, or an A9 Mark III, I think they're on for that. That will be higher resolution and will have 6K recording possibly, or even 8K recording. So I thank you. I'll set out. I use it all the time, and I've used it a ton already. But I'll set out compiling my thoughts for that review on our next episode.
Very welcome. And that is going to be it for quick news. Now on to the main topic. We're going to call our special guest in here on Zencastr, Elena Peach.
All right, let me get that the fax machine up. I think we're calling her on today. Right?
Yes, that's what we're using.
Dial in the number on the fax machine Zencastr, and we'll get her on the phone to talk about some AR and VR.
All right, so here we are on Zencastr with Elena on the line. Elena, how are you doing today?
I'm trying to make the most of my quarantine. I'm currently isolated in a cabin in the middle of the woods in Washington.
That actually sounds pretty great, not gonna lie.
Wait, is that in VR or actual?
Well, that's the weird thing because
Ooh, good point, Gabe.
I spend a lot of time in my VR headset, and so, I don't know why I really wanted to, so prior to the pandemic, I was based in New York City, and then when everything started to get, really hectic, I left the city in March and, did a total 360 and went from New York to a cabin in the woods. But I still spend a lot of time in VR, but when I'm in VR, I tend to be in more, I'd say like futuristic experiences, and dystopian games and things like that. And then I have the cabin and it's just nature and the sound of a river.
That's actually a really hilarious contrast between those two environments. I saw on LinkedIn that you're now working for the Glimpse Group.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing for them or what they're doing?
Yeah, so the Glimpse Group is a virtual reality and augmented reality platform company comprised of 9 different subsidiaries, and they're all focused on developing business to business or business to consumer VR and AR experiences. So we don't make video games, but we're doing things like focusing on VR and AR for corporate training, for K through 12 education, for higher education, for healthcare. So pretty much anything that's not video games, we kind of dabble in. And it's just a really fun environment. We were based in New York City, and we had plans to kind of open up a second branch in potentially the Boston area. But the pandemic has put a little bit of a pause on that plan. But I think we're really making the most out of being remote right now.
Right, sure. I mean, yeah, that sounds really awesome, actually. Like, you're kind of doing everything to some degree.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even speaking to the whole VR AR ecosystem as a whole, like Facebook in 2014, they acquired Oculus, and Facebook is really, with Oculus, one of the huge players in the game. You know, their VR research lab is one of the best and biggest out there, but they have a lot of people. Whereas for us, since we're more of a startup and we're smaller, I'm enjoying it just because my day-to-day tends to look very different. And so doing things like marketing or things kind of looking at UI, UX, or even just talking to potential clients and seeing what they can do with the technology. And so, yeah, my day-to-day varies, and I'd say that that's something that's true for a lot of the people that work at Glimpse.
Is your company more enterprise-facing and more towards businesses, or working just in research or consumers?
Yeah, we're more enterprise facing. And so, you know, corporate training software for businesses, or if it is something for consumers, then we're working with a brand to design the experience. And so, for example, one of our subsidiaries, they're called QReal, and they do a lot of high end or high quality AR experiences on social media for brands, or on the internet for brands. And so they've worked with Panera to make certain food items on Panera's menu viewable in AR. Or they've worked with Nissan to do an AR banner ad, which is actually something that Google just publicly released about 2 weeks ago. And so, and sorry that I'm getting into the details, but it's just there's so much going on in this space, and I just get really excited at talking about it. But so about a year ago, Google released a beta version for their swirl ad. And essentially think of a swirl ad as your typical banner ad that you would see when you're on a website, except instead of it being something that's flat and 2D, you can interact with it. And so they worked with a couple companies to do kind of proof of concepts for what banner ads could be. And one of the companies that they worked with was QReal, which was one of our subsidiaries. And we worked with Nissan to make a banner ad that was viewable, you know, online. And essentially it was a vehicle that you could interact with and move and rotate. And what Nissan found with that banner ad was engagement was 8 times higher than traditional banner ads.
Wow.
And so these swirl ads, they started testing them about a year ago. And 2 weeks ago, they finally made it available to the public. And so that's something that you're going to start seeing, you know, when you're scrolling online. I'd say probably within the next few months, maybe even faster, just because, you know, a lot of people are at home and brands are trying to figure out how do we reach people.
So are these ads available on the computer, or do you need some kind of virtual space to interact with them?
Nope, they're available on the computer. Literally just think about your traditional 2D banner ad that you would see, and what Google does with their swirl ad is it's just like there's an interactive 3D object in the ad.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's not going to be 3D where it comes to live in your space.
Yeah, I think I've come across them, honestly.
Yeah, you probably have. Or
Actually, before we get too deep into this, you're so into it, and I love it. You're throwing out a few terms that I feel like we should probably cover for our listeners. Could you maybe take a second to describe the differences between AR and VR? And I've heard of mixed reality. I don't know if you kind of covered that, but I'd love to hear how you would describe the differences to someone listening to the podcast.
Yeah, so think of virtual reality as you are inside of an entirely digitized environment. And so you have the headset on, and the world that you're in doesn't reflect that of the world that you physically are living in right now. And so, you know, if we were in VR right now doing this podcast, maybe we could be talking on a virtual beach, or talking in space, or talking underwater. Whereas augmented reality is you're taking digital elements and you're placing them into your current environment. Now, the big example that everybody likes to cite is Pokemon Go. That was really the first big augmented reality experience that, you know, got a lot of traction, got a lot of eyes. And it was the Pokemon where, you almost like they were in that your physical environment with you. Another big example of augmented reality would be Snapchat filters or Instagram filters, where you're doing something to digitally augment your face. Now, mixed reality, on the other hand, is kind of the merging of augmented reality and virtual reality, where you're going to maybe seamlessly switch between these digital environments and these augmented environments.
That's a great explanation of these differences. I guess, which one in your mind do you feel like is more relevant now?
Well, I think it depends on how we're talking about relevancy.
Okay.
If we're looking at relevant in terms of the ability to maybe impact somebody's perception and maybe really change the way somebody's learning, I would definitely say virtual reality, just because there's a certain power that comes within being inside of an entirely new headspace. And a lot of VR companies like to tout how their technology is distraction free because, you're focused within that VR space. And there are some VR companies that have done things to look at diversity and inclusion trainings in VR and measuring that at scale, and how doing D&I exercises in VR leads to a better learning outcome or better impact than making people take traditional classes where they just have to sit and listen to an instructor. But on the other hand, if we're looking at maybe just accessibility or a consumer-facing impact, I'm going to say augmented reality, just because everybody has a smartphone right now. Most people have smartphones. And with AR, your smartphone is the window into that new world. Not everybody has a VR headset.
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah.
That's a good
just
point.
based on the consumer tech.
Mm-hmm. Me personally, I'm more interested in virtual reality just because I think that there's a lot that you can do with the technology. And I just find it to be more exciting. But that's kind of just a personal opinion. I know that that's something that could vary around for people in the industry.
Right.
Okay, well, let's use that to dive into it, because we were basically trying to decide which one should we focus on first here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go first into VR, I guess. And the big thing that I've seen in just my little cursory looking into VR so far has been that it seems a lot more is being used when you go to like businesses and, for trainings, as you mentioned before. And that, yes, there's Oculus, yes, there's stuff for gaming, but it seems like as far as consumers go, there's not really a lot of VR tech out there. And it's kind of like what the 80s, or I guess the late 70s and the 80s were for computers, where you had businesses using them, but they hadn't invaded the home yet and become a staple of the everyday person's lives.
Yeah, and I would say that that's definitely true. And part of it is also just kind of a supply side. VR's been around for a while, depending on what definition of VR that you're going by. But I think that VR really started to spike up in interest because in 2014, Facebook acquired Oculus, and then they started to invest more money into researching the effects of the technology and researching the development. And then they released, their version of an Oculus headset. And then last year, they released what was called the Oculus Quest, which was a tetherless VR headset. And so it's a VR headset where you don't need to have a beefy PC in order to power it up, and you don't need to have any type of wires. Everything is all baked into that headset. And before, to get into VR, it had a higher barrier of entry because you needed around an $800 headset and then a PC that was at least $800 because it had to have the computing power powerful enough to run it. And now we have the Quest headset, which is around $400, and you don't need to deal with any of the wires or any of the other technology. And so that's been really nice because we have seen more of an interest in VR from it. But, on the consumer side, it's not everybody has a headset yet. And the nice thing is with enterprise clients is enterprise tends to have a little bit more budget to dip into and invest in these technologies. But with that being said, the Quest headset was a real hot ticket item for the holiday seasons, for Christmas and holidays in 2019.
Yeah, it was sold out pretty much.
It was sold out from I think end of November, pretty much up until I'd say about 2-3 weeks ago. So end of November to early July, because then you had the holidays, and then in March, the pandemic really started to kick in. And more people realized, oh, wait, this could be something viable to use while I'm stuck inside. And so I would say the consumer interest is there, but just supply also hasn't been able to meet demand too.
Something interesting we actually talked about earlier in this episode was that Facebook and Sony are ramping up their Oculus production. So they're going to be boosting their production units by 50% for their VR headsets, which I think kind of shows this increasing demand. And they've started to really polish their headsets now that it's standalone. I think it's more accessible. More people can dip their toes into a whole new experience.
Yeah, but definitely they're going to ramp up production. And that is something that I'm a little bit curious about. And I don't know anything, this is just me making a prediction, but I wonder if at the beginning, the Facebook team knew that the Quest was going to have some interest and if they limited their supply a little bit. So that way, these news stories would build up about, the low supply, about the buzz.
True.
That's just a little conspiracy theory that I have, but there's no validation to that. But I am excited to see, ramping up production, yes, and so more availability, but more importantly, within the next 2 or 3 years, probably 2 years, maybe even a year from now, the next generation of headsets that are coming out. So it's already rumored that, Oculus is planning on what they're going to do for the Quest 2, and even what the PSVR 2 might look like. And I'm excited to see these headsets because I think they're going to be lighter weight, better battery, and better field of view and just better graphics. And I think that when these second generations of headsets come out, that's when we're going to see a really big spike in consumer interest.
Can I ask, what headset are you using now?
So right now I use the Oculus Quest, and I love it because, I don't need to have a PC or I don't need to have any other type of wires to set it up. My first headset that I bought was the PSVR, and the thing that I don't like about the PSVR is you have to be wired in and you need to be facing the PlayStation camera when you're working. So on the Vive or even the old Rift headset, you'd have these towers that you could set up across your room. And so if you moved around, in a full 360 or 180, your camera would still pick you up, or your laser tracker, depending on what headset you used, would still pick you up. Whereas with the PSVR, you need to be facing the PlayStation camera, and so you're really kind of limited to just staying in one position, and it just doesn't make for as enjoyable VR. But I will say, though, that the graphics on the PlayStation VR are really nice, and I think the graphics on there are nicer than the graphics that I see on the Quest. But ultimately, graphics isn't the big selling point for me. I think it's just overall, what does the experience entail, and what can you do?
So what can you do is a big thing for me, because Stetson and I are both notoriously, we mention it often on this podcast, are not gamers. So really, it seems like for me, the reason I haven't gotten into VR so far is that the biggest use that companies can point towards consumers is gaming. Mm-hmm. So make an argument or try to convince me that there's some other reason I should be interested in it currently for consumers.
Or maybe gaming is the reason. Like maybe we don't know what we're missing out on.
So for me, honestly, I used to be a big gamer. So I had an older brother. So I was a big gamer when I was in elementary school and middle school. And then I hit high school and just got busy and ended up giving up games. And I'm not saying that I am the world's largest gamer, but I do really love popping into new VR experiences just to see how they're being constructed. And at least on my end, whenever I pop into a game, I'm kind of analyzing it and seeing, why did they make this decision, or why did they choose this design or this layout? And I'm seeing it as, how am I building up my knowledge for the future of VR experiences, and ultimately kind of the future of how we're going to interact and use this medium. And so I think one thing would be, if you're gaming, you could almost justify it as research, which, maybe will make you feel a little bit less guilty when you're popping into an experience. But there are some really nice VR games that are out there. And I think that just playing a video game in VR is entirely different than that of playing your traditional, 2D game or any type of traditional experience. And just popping into a VR headset, it just feels exciting because it feels like you're on the cusp of something new.
What would be like your favorite game right now? For example, you mentioned those some good ones.
I don't know about my favorite game right now, but I think I finally hopped into Echo VR, which is, I'm going to try to describe it. And Chris Milk, who's somebody who's a big influencer within the space, he likes to say that talking about VR is like dancing to describe architecture. And it really is something that you need to, you need to experience it in order to understand it. But essentially, imagine combining Quidditch with robots and dodgeball.
Okay.
And it's a sporting game that, some people play it competitively. And I've only played it a couple different times, but I just remember when I went in, I just thought, wow, even in the next 20 years, maybe 25 years, our current perspective on sport is going to shift. We're seeing the rise of esports, but a lot of esports tend to be based on what you're traditionally playing now. So, you got FIFA with soccer or Madden with football, and then you have other esports that are merging, but we're going to see an entirely new genre or new type of sport emerge. But what else I wanted to say is taking a step away from gaming, which I do think it is nice to step inside an entirely new environment and just feel like you're somewhere new and really feel like you're getting involved in the game. But there's a lot going on in terms of VR for maybe things on the mental health or physical health end. So one experience that I really, really like is called Supernatural, and it's made by that same guy, Chris Milk, who I just quoted 2 minutes ago. And essentially, it's a VR workout app where they have ties with somewhere within the music industry, and every day they release a 20 to 35 minute workout. And the workouts are all timed to different songs. And this can be a mix of current pop songs, so, The Weeknd and Dua Lipa, or you might hear older songs like maybe Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles. And I just think that it's a really nice experience because it's like I'm working out, but it's gamified. And at the same time, you do some stretches before and a little meditation when you finish. And you're also placed inside of these really beautiful 360 environments. And so, I'm being physically active, but at the same time, I'm putting my brain in this sort of rest state. And so I think that there's going to be a lot in terms of VR for physical and mental health that will emerge. And I think that it's really important for people to set aside time to, activate those parts of their bodies. And especially with us spending so much time at home right now, we might not necessarily being as active as we once were. And VR is a great way to stimulate that activity.
I completely agree with that. I also think, one of the other ways to focus on mental health is like empathy and kind of learning and understanding what other people think. And I've even seen examples of VR being used as a self-treatment for patients, because when you put on a VR headset, it's so immersive. Your body interprets it as reality. Like, your mind knows everything is fake, but your sensory system is unable to perceive that. And it basically encodes all of that as real experiences. And I saw an example of where a patient was both the patient, where they would sit and, say their problems, and then the VR headset would pull them out of their VR body and put them in the body of an instructor. And it kind of gave them a whole new lens to view the world. Mm-hmm. And I also think that's one way in storytelling, being immersed in new environments. You mentioned being transported for working out, but that can also be being transported to a new part of the world to understand what's going on there, to understand, maybe something political that's happening, and to kind of communicate a story in a new and immersive way that we previously haven't been able to do before.
Yeah, and that's something. So at the Glimpse Group, we have some subsidiaries that are stepping into that space. We have Foretell Reality, which is using social VR for therapy and support purposes, and also for soft skill and corporate collaboration purposes. So when you're talking about embodiment, what Foretell has done is they did one study with Yale University, where Yale took cancer patients who traditionally might have to go to the hospital in order to have a support group. So, we're going into the hospital, we're having a facilitated support group about what it's like right now with our cancer treatment and how we're feeling going through chemo and how we're feeling, just overall with being in the hospital. And instead of having to go to the hospital for the support groups, they were able to do their support group sessions at home, just with a VR headset. And the study is still ongoing, but at least in the initial findings, Dr. Asher Marks, who's the Yale doctor leading the study, is finding that VR can be a great way to help these patients reduce their sense of anxiety and maybe even potentially reduce levels of depression too. And, there can be a lot of different factors that could point to that. And I think one thing would be, the convenience of being able to have this access to therapy while in their own homes, while in the comfort of being at home, and they don't have to go into the hospital, which maybe could trigger a sort of negative headspace. And then at the same time, when they're in VR, they're embodying these different types of avatars, and maybe they're not seeing themselves as somebody who is sick, but they're seeing themselves as somebody who is more healthy, and maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable with talking about what's going on. Another subsidiary company that we have is called Immersive Health Group, and they focus on VR and AR solutions for the healthcare sector. And one thing that they did is they worked with our Boston University, had them build a VR simulation for their medical students in their medical program, focused on a VR simulation where essentially the medical student could play the role of the doctor, the social worker, or the patient. And by playing all three roles, they got a better comprehensive view of what the healthcare system is like for different perspectives. Specifically, this VR study or simulation that they did focused on a concept called social determinants of health. Essentially, social determinants of health are looking at what other factors could maybe contribute to somebody's health and overall sense of well-being. So for example, maybe I go to the hospital and I, as the patient, tell you I'm not feeling well, and you as the doctor, you run through all the tests and you don't see anything wrong with me, but you didn't stop to have a discussion about, personal factors that could be influencing me. Maybe I'm not feeling well because I don't make enough money and I actually am not able to buy myself enough food. Or maybe I'm not feeling well because I'm living in an environment that is unwell for me. And it's a big push to kind of get doctors to acknowledge these other determinants of health. And so this exercise let the doctors practice asking those more personal questions, and then also let the doctors practice what it's like to be in a patient perspective, to give those responses or to hear what it's like to interact with the doctor while talking about these more intimate issues.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, like how VR can open your eyes to whole new viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really brings a level of empathy, which actually it instills a lot of hope in me, considering the times that we're in now and where people are, the most polarized in political sense, but also just unwilling to step into someone else's shoes and even acknowledge that someone else might have a different experience of life than them. So
I think
this really, it's hopeful.
I think with the doctor example, I mean, it's so incredible how VR can be used for learning and teaching. And I think, Elena, you already brought up that we remember more of what we learn in virtual reality than what we do in a normal classroom.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a huge opportunity where you can remember more. And it's almost like in the olden days when I remember my dad telling me this, when people told stories, they would memorize parts of the story in association with 3D spaces. So like in the Colosseum, each pillar of the Colosseum would be one part of the story, and you could like walk around and remember each part as you got to the object in the real world. And I think when you're learning in 3D space, like all of a sudden, not only is it more tangible, but I think it just helps you encode and remember the information so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm an avid reader. Like I love reading books, love reading magazines, love keeping up with the news. But there is something about learning in virtual reality, and that speaks to what you're talking about, Stenson, where humans were spatial learners. We learn spatially by that type of association. And by being in these VR simulations, we're able to make those same spatial connections.
Wow. Well, that's a good transition, I think, into AR, because I heard somewhere that someone was comparing VR to kind of, we've been for the past 100 years looking at media through a frame, whether it's a, TV screen, our phones now, or even back to paintings way back when. And VR is stepping into that, but AR is essentially taking that and throwing that into the real world. So what is going on in the augmented reality space? Because personally, since Google Glass, I've been disappointed, but I'm renewing hope as I'm seeing some stuff come out with like what people are doing with the HoloLens, what Apple might be doing this fall. As you mentioned, what they did with Pokemon Go, I got way too far into that when that was out. But other than games, what is happening with AR?
Yeah, you said it right there. Google Glass was a little too early, and it was a little too early, A, on the technology side, and then also B, just on the overall consumer thought side. It seemed scary. It seemed too futuristic. It seemed like, I don't want to always have a screen next to my face. But now we're at a point where consumers are warming up to the idea, where they realize the utility. And right now, our smartphones are like a second extension of our hands. And smart glasses, why not try to swap the smartphone for smart glasses, especially if there's a lot of enhanced utility that can come with it. And aside from, just what the technology can do, you do have a lot of players that are entering the space. So yeah, Apple, Google, Samsung. I know Bose tried to release some augmented reality glasses, and ultimately, it did fail. I never got to try them myself, but I people that used them, I heard that they enjoyed them, but there just wasn't enough AR only apps for the Bose glasses. But I actually forgot your original question. Just kind of what are my thoughts on smart glasses now, or where AR is heading? Yeah,
basically that was kind of, Stetson might have a better way to frame this.
I guess how are consumers using AR? I think prime examples is we've seen Apple build it into their new iPhones with the Measure app. And I think we're starting to see brands kind of embrace it a little bit too with IKEA Place. You can now place furniture in your home. I think I remember seeing an ad on Twitter from Best Buy, like see if this TV will fit in your living room. You can
I actually tried it. It was pretty cool.
Right? Yeah. So I guess, Elena, from your experiences, what have you experienced with AR so far? And I guess, where do you see it heading?
Yeah. what have I experienced with AR so far? I mean, common examples come to mind would be a lot of different filters on social media, or even I was at the MIT VR and AR hackathon back in January, and my team, we actually built a spatial AR experience in Snapchat. We kind of hacked away at Snapchat in order to make it happen. But I would say right now, a lot of brands are trying to figure out, what do we do if we can't have our regular activations or in-person events? How can we reach people? And they're starting to turn towards AR even more. I think
OnePlus is
Yeah.
doing that this Tuesday.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What are they doing?
Yeah. They're launching the phone, the OnePlus Nord. We actually talked about it earlier on this episode. They're doing a full AR experience that you can download the app on Apple or Android and make an avatar. And I don't know what it's going to be exactly, but it looks pretty interesting.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard about that, so I'll have to look into that on Tuesday then.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully our viewers all get this. I'll work overtime to edit this episode and get it up so that our viewers know about it.
Wait, let me fix. Wow, I heard about this. This was great.
Make it easier on the editor now.
Yeah. Great, perfect. Multiple
It sounded
takes.
so convincing. But I think so prior to COVID, you could see a lot of brands and organizations were leaning more towards in-person activations. Overall, kind of looking at our generation, the late millennial, early Gen Z, we're starting to get more interested in just the experience economy. We're valuing less of things and we're valuing more of experiences. And so brands and big companies are responding to that by doing, really cool pop-ups or different things at events. And now we don't really know when events are going to go back to normal. Even 2 days ago, I was in a meeting and I was hearing updates that, it might be like this for 2 years, which...
let's
that's
stink.
scary to hear.
Yeah,
I will be ordering my VR headset right after this.
Can we re-record that and say 1 year? Because I think people aren't going to be able to handle it.
Yeah. Hopefully 1 year. 1 month. I don't know. I wish I could wave a magic wand and, have it all be over. But brands are trying to figure out, what do we do? People are valuing experiences, but we can't do what we originally thought, an in-person experience was. How are we going to foster that same sense of delight and connection? And so they're starting to invest more into making these immersive experiences, be them with VR and AR or with other digital technologies. So a big example would be Fortnite about 2.5 months ago did a concert with Travis Scott. And Travis Scott's avatar was there, and it was literally...
Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah, and the thing is they realized, well, how do we break our old paradigm on live event and make something entirely new? Because we're working with a new medium. What can we do with this medium? So it wasn't just, sit in a crowd and watch Travis Scott perform, but it was be part of the crowd and watch Travis Scott as he transforms sizes, as he changes material, as he changes the environment that you're in. You're not just listening to him, but you're doing this entire encapsulating experience. And so I think we're going to see a lot more brands look into what can we do with this technology. And yeah, some interesting things that you pointed out. Okay, so IKEA has their app, or other brands are trying to, do a virtual try-on or augmented try-on. So another company that we have, QReal at the Glimpse Group, QReal focuses on lifelike AR and, these really great social media activations. So they were the one that worked with Google on the swirl ads. And they did something with Bollé, which is a sunglasses manufacturer, where if you tried the front-facing camera, you could see what Bollé's sunglasses looked like on you. But then if you turned it to the back-facing camera, you could see how you would see the world if you were wearing their sunglasses.
Wow. That's a really
so it
clever...
was a try-on and try-out.
That's a clever activation.
Yeah. And in terms of coming up, okay, so you just talked about that release that's going to happen or that experience that will happen on Tuesday. And I think within the next year or two, we're going to see a lot more cameras, at least on smartphones, that will have depth sensing. And depth sensing cameras can enable you to do a lot more complex augmented reality. So one quick example would be occlusion. How does your augmented reality experience react when there is an object in front of it? So the new iPad that was just released about 3 months ago, that one included a depth sensing camera. And if you look at the promo video for the iPad, it shows somebody playing a game and the AR experience recognizes the table and will move behind the table or move on top of the table. The new iPhone 12 that's coming out, it should be in September, but I don't know if COVID's going to change the production timeline or not. Stenson, you would know this because you're the phone guy.
Yeah,
do you know when the new...
I think we're still hearing rumors that it's going to be pushed back, somewhat similar to what the iPhone 10 was, I think, when that came out. It was announced September, and then it officially came out, I believe, October, or maybe that was actually November. But yeah, we have to wait and see. Apple has been working on this for a long time. The rumors are circulating. We just don't know for sure until it's actually here.
Yeah. So we're going to see more phones that will have depth sensing. And then even looking within the next year or two, you're going to see more phones that will have 5G capability. And with 5G, we're just going to be able to, put better real-time augmented reality experiences on your phone. Because right now, if you're trying real-time stuff, you are a little bit more limited. But with 5G, it should be more interactive and potentially more realistic looking experiences too.
Wait, you said the company QReal is under you,
Yeah.
or the Glimpse. You guys don't have anything to do with that company I saw, Unreal, that does the glasses?
No, we don't.
No.
But
Okay.
Unreal, I mean, that's like another tangent, but
Yeah.
AR headsets as a whole, like it's still, I think they're still developing. Like the most impressive one I've seen is HoloLens too.
Yep.
That's
but the one
expensive,
issue,
though.
Yeah. Well, that's also why a lot of it is invested in enterprise, because enterprise clients can drop the big bucks.
True.
Yeah.
Do you think for me, I was looking at it and it seems like that is the type of thing, or I mean AR headsets in general are the type of thing where we need like a certain technology breakthrough in either battery, maybe wireless, the ability to transfer power wirelessly, over long distances, or processors just getting down to a size that they are so small, so efficient that it won't feel like this huge bulky thing on your head.
Yes, and yes. I mean, I think that there's a lot of advancements that need to be made, and I think it's also being conscious of who's included in the design decisions. So you asked me just about the Unreal headset, and the one thing with Unreal is I've had people that have tried it and they really, really like the headset, and then other people that try it and the experience isn't quite right. I know for me, it wasn't quite right. And part of it is because Unreal, is based out of Asia, and just the headset is designed for more of a homogeneous head shape.
Huh.
And so if you're within, people that have that certain type of head shape, then the headset feels comfortable, and what you're seeing within the field of view for the AR glasses, looks nice. But if you're not, you have to adjust and mess around with it. But overall, my thoughts on a lot of AR headsets that are out there is it doesn't feel like a full augmented experience. It kind of just feels as if, oh, okay, you're wearing glasses, and here we're going to give you this teeny little window within your glasses where stuff is digital. And it almost feels as if you're just slapping a TV screen onto my glasses.
Yeah, I guess my question is, why bother? Why not just get a VR headset and create your workspace in VR, get a much higher fidelity, higher resolution, better interactions, better experience, and just work in a more open cube where you can, walk around and do stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that that's also why I'm more excited by VR, is I feel like there's a lot more that you can do with the technology, at least right now. AR definitely once it takes some more time to advance, but it's also, it is important to, recognize your real surroundings and see what you can do to enhance your current experience. And so there can be a lot that you can do with potentially where augmented reality glasses might go. So, maybe it could even be something as going to the grocery store, and if you have a peanut allergy, everything with peanuts in it will have a big red X on it, so
Oh, wow.
Or going, to a new location, and instead of having to open Google Maps to look, oh, what street, what do I do, where do I go? You can just see arrows, guiding you and pointing out on where to go. And so I think that there's different uses for just different purposes. And I think VR and AR technology shouldn't try to be a one-size-fits-all. We should specifically try to design for what experiences are best for each medium.
Sweet. Well, I think that kind of covers a huge spectrum. I mean, we literally stepped into an entire different world with this episode of the podcast. So, Elena, I want to thank you so much for your time and for coming on the show. Where can people find you?
Find me on LinkedIn or Twitter at Elena, ELENA, Peach, Piech, and then my Twitter is at ELEPIECH. And to learn a little bit more about the Glimpse Group and what we're doing when it comes to the lovely, sexy world of enterprise, B2B, and B2B2C VR and AR solutions, find us at theglimpsegroup.com.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Well, that's going to be it for this episode. I'm Stetson.
I'm Gabe.
And we look forward to talking to you.
Elena can say her name.
Oh.
I'm Elena. I'm in a cabin in the woods.
And we look forward to speaking with you in the next episode.
I know somebody who knows somebody that's already working on the Oculus Quest 2, and I've tried to ask that person for details. Yeah, I've tried to ask for details.
Take them out for drinks.
On the headset, and I can't get any type of information.
It's gonna be so good though. You know it's gonna be good.
When will we hit levels of Ready Player One? That's the real question everyone wants to know.
I know. And that's something that
Stetson, have you watched this movie yet first?
I have not seen it. I've seen the trailers.
Okay. Gosh, that should have been all your research right there.